Hey, all you Switch fans, welcome back to this week's episode of What's New in the eShop. In this series, every week, I take a look at what the new eShop releases are going to be, give you my recommendations of which ones I think are particularly good looking, and you'll see a sizzle reel of the rest of them. So without further ado, let's jump into the first full week of releases for the month of April 2022. Alright, so on Tuesday, April 5th, we have two big retail releases. The first of which is LEGO Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga. I have to admit, I wasn't excited about this. I assumed it was just like all other of the LEGO Star Wars games. But I recently got a chance to watch some footage and watch a little breakdown of what's new in the game. And I think they've actually put a surprising amount of effort to kind of mix up the LEGO Star Wars formula a little bit. It really looks like they put a lot more work into the space combat. I hear now that there are random encounters, so I'm not exactly sure how that works. I don't know if there's actual travel in space from place to place and you can get interrupted. It seems now that many of the levels are also multi-path now, so rather than many of the other LEGO games where you are on a very linear path, this game does sound like it gives you more options than in the past. I was also watching some footage that was really cool with the blaster characters. You can actually now go into cover, and this goes into sort of an over-the-shoulder Gears of War style shooting mode. So I found that pretty shocking. That's pretty strange and different for a LEGO game. I really feel like they're moving out of their comfort zone a little bit. So maybe this one actually is worth keeping on your radar a little bit. My only big annoyance with this is that there is a lot of DLC right there on day one. Now the DLC you can get all at once if you buy the deluxe version of the game, which is $10 more than the regular. So rather than $60, you can pay $70. Get that deluxe edition, get all those DLC packs. But ultimately, it always feels a little skeevy when they have a bunch of DLC day one. To me, at least, that's how it feels. Like I said, April 5th, $60 for the regular version, $70 for the deluxe version. All right, also on April 5th, another big retail release is MLB the Show 22, which is very bizarre feeling if you're not familiar with MLB the Show. This is a Sony-owned property and franchise, and they're starting to branch out and putting it on other platforms. So it's definitely going to be a bizarre feeling seeing this on a Nintendo platform, but I'm glad to see Sony playing nice and sharing their exclusive rights to MLB games and finally allowing them to be on other platforms. I cannot speak from experience with MLB The Show. I've never tried any of these games, so I really can't tell you if they're great or not. But I'm sure coming from Sony, they're at least decent. And again, that is April 5th for $60. All right, so starting on April 7th, we have an absolute plethora of new releases. First of all, we have Chrono Cross, the Radical Dreamers Edition. This is an HD remake of the classic Chrono Cross game. All the 3D models have been converted to HD. There's some new music mixing that I understand, and also a lot of modern conveniences that people expect now in their RPGs. So it should be a good way for fans of that franchise to go back and revisit that game. That will release for $19.99. All right, so the game I'm really excited about on April 7th is the House of the Dead remake. There's not much I can say about House of the Dead that probably isn't already known. I mean, it is a quintessential light gun game. Thankfully for the Switch version, there is going to be gyroscope aiming so that you can simulate that light gun experience. I've actually heard that there will be an update post-launch that will include a new mode called Cowboy Mode, where you can actually dual-wield Joy-Cons with one in each hand. So that sounds like a lot of fun. I've got my fingers crossed that they don't botch this one up. I don't see how they can mess it up too much. It's just the original game, but they're remaking it in a new great visual style. Yeah, fingers crossed. Hope it's good. That releases for $24.99. Also on April 7th, we have Happy's Humble Burger Farm. That one is kind of tough to say. This basically looks like a Five Nights at Freddy's clone, but it looks interesting. Apparently you are making burgers, but you're also using those skills at making burgers to please some more nefarious owners of the store, and there's all kinds of creepy stuff going on. But yeah, definitely has a strong Five Nights at Freddy's vibe. It's not even remotely my type of game. I have no desire to check it out, but I know there's apparently a big audience for this kind of stuff, so I'm sure there are people that are really excited about it. That does release, like I said, on April 7th for $19.99. I think my number one pick this week is actually going to be The Last Friend. This also releases on April 7th. The Last Friend takes place in a post-apocalyptic world, and you are a hero that is trying to figure out where all the dogs are disappearing to in this post-apocalyptic land. Your character actually finds out that he can talk to dogs, and he starts recruiting these dogs that he's rescuing and finding to help him along these adventures. The gameplay is actually a cross between tower defense and a beat 'em up. So I think the way I understand it is that the dogs, you can set them up as your tower defense, like running their turrets, whereas you as the main character are going along beating up guys that are coming after you. Looks really silly, but I really like that combination of genres. That sounds like a fun genre to mash up. Most importantly, you can pet the dogs. So you got to have that in any game that has dogs, in my opinion. So like I said, that release was April 7th for $14.99. That game does actually have a demo, which is available right now. So you can check it out for yourself to see if you like it. All right, also on April 7th is Slipstream. Slipstream is an old school arcade style, sort of that super scroller style racing game. If you're familiar with things like Outrun or maybe like the cruising games, the old style cruising games, you'll know what I'm talking about. This one looks really great. I actually got a key from the developer. I've already filmed my first quick look on it. I am under embargo, so I can't give my exact impressions of the game, but I will say that while I was playing it, I felt quite happy indeed. So I definitely think you should mark this one on your calendars if you're into that kind of genre. And that does release on April 7th for a very reasonable $9.99. All right, so the last game to really catch my eye releasing on April 8th is Astrodogs. Probably not a lot to say about this game. It seems like a very obvious Star Fox clone, but with its own very distinct visual style. I personally think the visual style looks really great, especially when you get to see it in motion. Kind of crosses the line between something sort of modern and retro at the same time. My only disappointment is I've watched some PC footage and it does not have voice work for the dogs like Star Fox would have had for their characters. And I think if you're trying to clone that game, that's actually a big part of it. I could be wrong, but for me, I feel like if you are playing a game that you're moving fast, taking down enemies, you don't want to have to read what the other characters are saying. You'd like to be able to actually just hear them. That was from watching some older PC footage from about 9 months ago, so I don't know, maybe it's been updated and has voice acting, but I doubt it does. But other than that, I think it looks really great. I think you should check that one out. Like I said, that releases on April 8th for, I think, a very reasonable $12.99. All right, sit tight for just a minute while we watch this other sizzle reel of more games coming out the first week of April. Right, I hope you liked what you saw. I think there's a pretty darn good variety this week for a lot of different genre choices. I think for me, the ones I'm really looking forward to are the House of the Dead remake, The Last Front, and Slipstream. Those are the ones that have really caught my eye, so I'm going to hopefully try to grab a copy of each of those. Let me know down in the comments below what you're thinking of picking up. And until next time, I hope you have great gaming, tricksters. Bye-bye.